Viewer discretion is advised.
The lights were merciless that night. Rows of cameras blinked like silent predators, each one waiting to capture history before it even happened. The audience murmured with excitement, unaware that they were about to witness a conversation that would tear through Hollywood like a lightning strike. Bill Maher leaned back in his chair, that familiar half-smile playing on his lips, the one that always meant he knew something his guest didn't. Across from him sat Meghan Markle, radiant, poised, every gesture calculated yet graceful. She looked like a woman who'd come to control the narrative, not be questioned by it. But control is a fragile thing, especially under the weight of a million watching eyes. When the applause faded, Bill began the way seasoned hosts do, with a charm that feels harmless at first. Michigan, thank you for coming. You've been, let's say, very selective about where you show up lately. Meghan smiled, a polished, royal kind of smile. I only go where conversations matter, Bill. The crowd chuckled softly, but Bill didn't. His eyes flickered with something sharper. Good, he said. Let's have one of those conversations then. They was when the air in the room shifted. He wasn't reading from cue cards anymore. He wasn't playing host. He was hunting truth. You've spoken a lot about being mistreated, Bill said slowly. By the press, the palace, your own family. At what point does accountability enter the story? A stillness gripped the room. Cameras zoomed in instinctively. Meghan's smile faltered just enough for everyone to notice. I'm sorry, she said carefully. Are you implying that I caused what happened to me? I'm saying, Bill replied, his voice steady, that maybe not everything that's gone wrong in your life is someone else's fault. It was the kind of sentence that cuts the air in half. The audience froze. Meghan blinked once, slowly, then leaned forward. That's incredibly offensive, she said. You have no idea what I've lived through. Bill didn't flinch. I have some idea. You've told it to the world. On Oprah, in documentaries, in interviews. People have heard your story. What they haven't heard is where your own choices fit into it. It was the spark. Simultaneous seconds into the interview, and the fuse was lit. For a split second, Meghan's eyes softened, like she might take a breath and steady herself. But then something inside her snapped. The tension of years of scrutiny, of headlines, of strangers dissecting her every move. You think this is about choices? She said, voice trembling with disbelief. This is about survival. Survival? Bill echoed. You married a prince, Meghan. You live in California, surrounded by every luxury imaginable. If that's survival, I'd hate to see what thriving looks like. The crowd gasped. And the meltdown had only just begun. The silence that followed wasn't quiet at all. It had a pulse. You could almost hear the crew breathing behind the cameras, afraid to move, afraid to miss a single second of what was unfolding. Meghan's face stiffened, the warmth gone. You think privilege cancels pain? She said. You think because I have money, what I went through doesn't matter? Misinformation Bill's smirk vanished for the first time that night. I think pain is real. I just don't think yours is unique. That was it. The match to the gasoline. Meghan's voice sharpened. You sit there and belittle what I've experienced because it makes you uncomfortable. You don't want to believe a woman when she says she's been targeted. Bill leaned forward, elbows on the desk. No, I don't want to believe that disagreement automatically means bigotry. Sometimes, Meghan, people just don't like you, and that's allowed. The audience shifted in their seats. Some nodded. Others stared, wide-eyed. Simmons' Kamunjazer cracked. You have no right to talk about what I've faced. You have no idea what racism, isolation, or betrayal feel like. I have an idea of public criticism, Bill countered. I've lived under it for decades. The difference is I don't package it as trauma and sell it to Netflix." A low, stunned murmur rolled through the studio. Even the camera operator's hand trembled slightly as he zoomed in. Meghan exhaled sharply, eyes burning. That is such a cruel, outdated way to look at a woman speaking her truth. Bill didn't blink. It's not outdated to ask questions. That's what this is, a question. You came here to have one, didn't you? Her jaw tightened. I came here for honesty. And you're getting it. Pilger of tension ran through the crowd. This wasn't just an interview anymore. It was a duel. Meghan's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. You're trying to humiliate me on live television. Pone softened slightly, but his words didn't. No, I'm trying to understand why everything in your life seems to become someone else's fault. At what point do you look inward instead of outward? Meghan's breath caught. She blinked rapidly, as if fighting back something. Anger? Tears? Both. This isn't fair, she said quietly. You're twisting my story to fit your narrative. Bill paused. Maybe your story has too many versions. For a moment, there was nothing but the hum of the studio lights. Then, slowly, Meghan stood up. Her voice trembled as she said, I don't have to sit here and be attacked. Bill didn't move. You could sit and defend yourself instead. The audience held their breath. One wrong word and it would all erupt. You think you're brave? Meghan said, pointing at him. You hide behind sarcasm and call it truth, but all you do is punch down. Glenn raised an eyebrow. And all you do is play the victim. A gasp. Someone in the crowd whispered, Oh my God. Meghan's face flushed crimson. You're disgusting. And you're deflecting. The room broke into chaos. Some clapped, some booed. Cameras scrambled to follow her as she turned sharply away from the desk. Bill watched her, expression unreadable. If you wanted a safe space, he said softly, you came to the wrong show. The audience went dead still again. Meghan stopped mid-stride, her back straightened. She turned her head just enough for the camera to catch the tear shimmering in the corner of her eye. Safe spaces, she whispered. Maybe that's something you've never needed. Bill didn't respond. He didn't have to. Misinformation. The spark had become a fire, and it was only getting hotter. Texting the studio was glowing in tension. Every light felt brighter, every sound sharper, every silence longer. It was the kind of atmosphere that made people forget they were watching television. It felt personal, raw, and dangerous. Meghan took a step back toward her chair, her breathing shallow but her expression hardening again. You don't understand what it's like to live your life under constant judgment, she said. I do, Bill replied. I just don't confuse criticism with persecution. You don't get to define my pain, Meghan said sharply. I'm not defining it, Bill said. I'm just saying you've built a brand around it. Salmon, gasps, filled the room again. Meghan froze. That word, brand, hit her like a slap. Is that what you think I am? She asked, voice trembling. A brand? I think you've turned suffering into strategy, Bill answered calmly. Every headline, every interview, every tear, they're all currency, and you're spending it well. The air felt heavy. The crew in the shadows exchanged nervous glances. One of the producers whispered something into a headset, but no one dared to move. Michigan crossed her arms. You think you're exposing hypocrisy, she said, but all you're doing is showing who you really are. A bitter man attacking a woman who dared to speak up. Bill tilted his head. You think speaking up means never being questioned. That's not empowerment, Meghan. That's entitlement. Her hands clenched. You sit here pretending to be a truth teller, but you're no different from the tabloids you criticize. You profit off conflict. He leaned in slightly. And what do you profit from? Compassion merch? A few people in the audience laughed nervously, but it sounded wrong, like laughter at a funeral. Meghan's voice shook with anger. "You are vile. You twist everything into a punchline. And you twist everything into a tragedy," Bill replied, his tone dropping low, almost pitying. "Maybe that's why you can't see the difference anymore." Meghan's chair scraped violently as she stood. "This interview is over." Bill didn't move. "Then walk off," he said. "Add it to the list." "Excuse me? Your family, the palace, the press, and now this show. Every time you don't get what you want, you leave." Meghan's breath hitched. "You have no right to talk about my family." "You made them everyone's business," Bill said quietly. "You told the world your story. Don't get angry when the world starts talking back." The audience was caught between shock and fascination. Every word felt like a punch thrown in slow motion. "You think this is entertainment," Meghan said, her voice trembling. "But you're destroying people's lives." Bill looked at her evenly. "You walked in here to shape the story. You just didn't expect the story to shape you back." For the first time, Meghan seemed unsure. Her anger cracked, replaced by something else. Hurt, exhaustion, maybe fear. "You have no empathy," she whispered. "I have empathy," Bill said, "just not for self-pity." She stared at him, speechless. The audience sat frozen, caught between pity and disbelief. Then slowly, she picked up her purse. "I'm leaving." Bex exhaled through his nose, almost smiling. "Of course you are." Sheriff words hung in the air like a blade. Meghan turned toward the exit. Cameras followed every movement. Her heels struck the floor with a rhythm that sounded final. And just when it seemed the storm had passed, she turned back one last time. "You're going to regret this," she said quietly. Bill blinked once. "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise," she said. And with that, she walked off the set, disappearing into the blinding hallway lights. The audience didn't clap. They didn't move. It was as if everyone was afraid the moment might collapse if they breathed too loudly. Then Bill looked straight into the camera. His voice was calm again, almost detached. "Well," he said, "that escalated quickly." A few people laughed. Control room went silent except for the director whispering, "Cut to break, now." The screen faded to black. But in the darkness, one truth lingered. The show wasn't over. Not yet. When the show cut to commercial, the studio erupted into controlled chaos. Producers rushed across the floor, whispering frantically into headsets. Assistants scrambled to check camera feeds to make sure every second had been captured. The network knew what it had, the kind of viral gold that turns late night into legend. Bill stayed seated, calm, almost eerily calm. He took a sip of water, his eyes fixed on the empty chair across from him. The same chair that just minutes ago had held one of the most famous women in the world, now vacant, glowing under the lights like evidence left at a crime scene. A stagehand hesitated near him. "Should we go after her?" Salmon didn't look up. "And say what? Come back so I can offend you again?" The assistant gave a weak laugh, unsure if he was joking. In the background, murmurs rolled through the audience. Some whispered, "He went too far." Others said, "She couldn't handle it." But no one could deny it. They had just witnessed something electric, something real. The cameras came back on. Bill straightened in his chair. The applause light blinked red, but the clapping was scattered, uncertain. He cleared his throat. "So," he began, his tone lighter now, "that wasn't exactly how I pictured tonight going." Wireless ripple of laughter spread through the room, the kind of nervous laughter people use to release tension when they've seen too much. "I invited Meghan Markle here for a conversation," Bill continued. "She decided to leave instead. That's her choice. But it says something, doesn't it, about where we are as a culture? We've forgotten how to disagree without detonating." The audience listened closely. The humor was gone now, replaced by a kind of solemn authority. "You can't live in a world where every hard question feels like an attack," he said. If we only surround ourselves with people who agree with us, we stop learning, we stop growing. And that's when truth dies. Shoreline applause grew louder this time. People weren't sure if they were clapping for the statement or for the relief of hearing something final. Behind the scenes, executives watched from a glass booth, arguing in hushed tones. Some said Bill should apologize before the backlash hit. Others said to ride the wave. Controversy is currency, one of them muttered, and we're about to be rich. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit hallway just outside the studio, Meghan stood alone. A makeup artist tried to hand her a tissue, but she brushed it away. Her eyes were red, her breathing heavy. She looked both furious and humiliated, a queen without her crown, a soldier retreating from battle. A security guard offered to escort her to her car. She didn't answer. She just stared at the exit door, frozen in thought. Bill's monologue continued, deliberate and cutting. "I don't hate Meghan," he said. "I don't even dislike her. But being famous doesn't make you immune to accountability. And if fame is all you have, it's a thin shield against criticism." Exhilarata was measured, controlled, and perfectly timed. The kind of line that would replay endlessly on morning news shows and social media feeds by dawn. By the time the credits rolled, the internet had already ignited. Crimson Femme Meghan standing up mid-interview were flooding X, TikTok, YouTube. Headlines flashed. Meghan Markle storms off Bill Maher show. Talk show turns explosive after 33 seconds. Hollywood's queen meets her match. In living rooms across the country, people argued. Was she right to walk out? Was he cruel or courageous? Everyone had an opinion. Everyone wanted to take a side. But for Bill, the night ended quietly. He walked backstage, ignoring the frantic voices of producers and journalists begging for a statement. He paused near the doorway, glancing back once at the empty set. The spotlight was still shining on that chair, that empty, accusing chair, as if waiting for someone to come back and fill it. Bill smirked faintly. "Now that's good television," he muttered under his breath before walking away. Cameras were already flashing as Meghan stepped into her car, her driver shielding her from the reporters shouting questions. Her jaw was tight, her face unreadable. The door slammed, the car pulled away. But the story, the real story, was only just beginning. By morning, the world was on fire. Stiffness had been viewed over 20 million times before sunrise. Every social media feed, every news panel, every gossip site pulsed with the same question. What really happened on that stage? Patriotism replayed the moment Meghan stood up, the tremor in her voice, the glint in her eyes. Talk shows froze the footage frame by frame, analyzing expressions like detectives at a crime scene. Some said Bill had ambushed her. Others called it the first honest interview she'd ever faced. Shimmer, her mansion sat silent behind high walls. Paparazzi lined the road like vultures, waiting for a glimpse. Inside, Meghan scrolled through her phone, the headlines multiplying by the second. Bill Maher destroys Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle exposes Hollywood hypocrisy. The world couldn't decide if she was victim or villain. For a while, she said nothing. Not a single post, not a single statement. Just silence. A silence that made the frenzy grow louder. Back in Los Angeles, Bill arrived at his studio early. The same crew that had watched the explosion now greeted him with cautious smiles. "It's everywhere," a producer said. "You're trending in 40 countries." Bill nodded, emotionless. Figures. He sat behind his desk, staring again at that empty chair, now covered with a cloth for the next show. For a brief second, his smirk faded. Maybe he thought about the line he'd crossed. Maybe he didn't. He just whispered, "She'll be fine," before the cameras rolled again. By midday, Meghan's team released a statement. Polished, precise, and cold. The Duchess was blindsided by a hostile environment and chose to remove herself from an unsafe space. Women should never be attacked for speaking their truth. Within minutes, Bill responded during a podcast taping. "It wasn't unsafe," he said calmly. "It was uncomfortable. There's a difference. Real conversations are supposed to be uncomfortable." Ruthless. The internet split cleanly in two. Hashtag I Stand With Meghan trended alongside hashtag Team Bill. Fans argued, celebrities weighed in, experts debated body language and tone. Every opinion became ammunition. Every silence became strategy. Somewhere in that noise, the truth, whatever it was, got lost. That night, the network aired the full, unedited interview. No cuts, no censorship. The ratings shattered every record. Viewers around the world leaned closer to their screens, watching every second of tension, every sharp inhale, every tremor of restraint. It wasn't entertainment anymore. It was something darker, something truer. A mirror held up to fame itself. In the final minutes of the broadcast, the shot lingered once more on the empty chair. The lights dimmed, leaving only the faint echo of the crowd, the hum of the cameras, the ghost of a confrontation that no one would forget. Simmons overplayed, Bill's closing words from the night before. "We live in a time where disagreement feels like war. But maybe it's not war. Maybe it's the last sign we're still listening." The screen faded to black. Outside, storms of opinion continued to rage. Hashtags rose and fell, and the world moved on to its next scandal. But for those who had watched it live, for those who had felt that silence between questions and answers, something lingered. Because behind the lights and the headlines, behind the fame and the fury, there was something far more human. A man who refused to bend. Kosher, who refused to break. And a single conversation that proved once again that truth, real, uncomfortable truth, always burns brightest under the spotlight.